My guest today is Yasmin Al-Ani Spence. She's a director at the global architectural practice of Wilkinson Eyre. Yasmin has led the team delivering the Dyson campus in Wiltshire and is involved with the practice's work in R&D. So who better to help us look into an uncertain future? So Yasmin, what do you think we can take away as positives from the current pandemic around health and well-being, design of office space, of homes, or indeed public space?
Well, I guess, Peter, there's always a bit of a silver lining, isn't it? And to sort of say, let's take positives away is a big statement. It is not the best of times, not for the economy and not for a lot of people who are obviously unwell and who are at home working. But what it does give us, it gives us as a sort of society a bit of a reset and a time to reevaluate where we are, where we have gone wrong, and where we can move to in the future. So I think in a weird way, yes, it is a positive for us to have that breather and to reassess where we are. So, and we must take that on board. I mean, the problem is a little bit at the moment is everybody's an expert. Suddenly everybody has opinions and a lot of people know the way forward. I think reality is we don't really know the answers yet. And what we need to do is actually look and learn and have a little bit of patience with this as well. So that's where I personally think is the first strategy, that is observe, don't rush into the next conclusions that we will sit with for a long time, but actually have that patience and that observation time to really assess where we need to go from here. For me, sort of really having thought about this, and I've wrote a few things about it as well, is it's two key issues, isn't it? Is what positives, what can we learn, what have we learned? I mean, what have we learned is that we can work really well from home. We are surprised, many of us are surprised, and whether that is adults as well as children, that actually our software, our technology is actually fairly sufficient. So that's a really an upside. We have, I think, rediscovered our respect to nature, whether that is for physical activity, whether that's for mental well-being, and just actually for the beauty of it. I mean, even if you go online, people can't post anything, but everybody's rejoicing in whatever nature and whatever little bit they have. So that is something I'm taking away as a big positive. We're not taking it for granted. For once, we have to look again and take it for what it is. So those are the real positives. We have more time with families. We have more time at home. We don't have to commute. So it is nature, it is travel or commuting that I take from that. But again, we have to be very careful that the reason why we succeeded from working from home so well is because we had pre-existing relationships with people, with friends, colleagues, and projects at work. So we had a big base to build this on. And let's be realistic. It's only been 7 or 8 weeks. It's early to really test. If we actually had to start everything from new, where would that lead us? New projects, new startup businesses. How difficult would that be? So as the sort of negatives, or not as the negatives, as the sort of challenges, it would be if we were to go down this route for longer or as part of our new work strategy, how do we build in people into this? How do we make friendships? How do we create relationships with people? When you sit in a Zoom meeting, often we have to have the cameras off and there's no body language. We're not getting any body language back from anybody. And that's very hard. It's a very different way of working. There's now 2 work streams, and I think offices are looking and accepting that working from home is a good solution. It allows time for deep work, it takes the pressure off transport, and it allows people more time at home. Obviously, you can't work from home all the time, so you will need to come back into the office for various reasons, and many that of collaboration and people. So you have then 2 work streams. You have potentially people in the office, and you potentially have people working from home. So this new office, in my mind, and what we're thinking of also collectively, is it's a space for collaboration. But again, how do you do that at a bigger distance? But it also has to bridge now these 2 different work streams. And that is going to create those interesting spaces. It's going to have to bridge those people who are in the office and those people who are potentially working from home or from elsewhere, or satellite offices for easier access. And these are the exciting bits where I think the future will also move. It's the like you said, the health and the density, but also we might need to accept new types of spaces in order to combine two of these work streams.
One of the discussions that people have been having is about density, and as a practice, Wilkinson Eyre are well known for tall buildings. Do you think our attitudes to density will change as a result of the pandemic?
And in a way, I hope it does. There's already been articles out about BCO. I think the density will play a role. People will expect to be in a healthy environment, or in an environment that if somebody next to them has a cold, they're not sitting right next to them. It is to potentially have choice of taking escalators or stairs or lifts. It is providing opportunity. I think that is really where that density issue will come in. Wider corridors, all of these things that we've taken for granted, that people assume that we will accept because of part of building control and standards, it's been fine. Are these still fine? Or, those things really need to be readdressed. And I think it's a really good opportunity.
As a global architectural practice, one of the, I guess, positive things which has come out of the debate around the pandemic is, do we actually need to fly quite so much? Do you think this will change the way that you work?
I would hope so. I mean, I've had a lot of talks with a lot of different people about this, colleagues in the industry as well, and we all sort of assessed, if we think back on meetings, the number of meetings we've attended, whether that's by car, train, or plane, how many were really of value. So we have to see, where do we actually add value in being there in person. There are some things I think will always add that value. Others are not. You just expect it to be there. So at the moment, the way we're working is, you are as far away from me as somebody in China is. So we are all at a distance now. And that's actually brought back that level playing field, and has taught us in reverse that we can work at a distance without constant flights. So I would hope that change. I hope on all levels that's been a bit of an awakening, that we don't have to rely on it for as much as what we thought.
And perhaps I can ask you another question as well. I mentioned that you had worked with the Dyson campus at Malmesbury, and I was just interested in terms of, we do seem to have a problem in this country of making stuff. That has become really very evident in all the search, even for face masks. Do you think that this will create a change where we become, once again, a country that makes things rather than just services things?
It would be great. And I think a lot of companies, or a lot of businesses, whether it's small or large, will have to rethink and potentially retrain staff. And it becomes back to that resilience. I think for the first time in a long time, in this country and other countries as well, we've been asked to be resilient and more agile, not just in the way we work, but in what we can work on. So I think it's, again, going back to architecture, it shows that building and future flexibility, that circular economy of buildings, and is really a valid point. So the more that we as an architectural group can provide spaces that can change, then that will allow that to happen. So I think it's a great example, yes.
I know it's still, as you say, fairly early days into the crisis, but what impact has this had so far on the practice itself and the sort of work and how work is coming through?
I have to say, I think we're all a bit surprised. We've done immensely well. I'm looking after a big project in London, and we've had, actually, we are performing just as we did before. It is a learning curve. You learn other things though, like we work a lot on MS Teams, and it's absolutely amazing what you can do. And I probably wouldn't want to stop that if we got out of the situation. So we have been very, very positively surprised. And what has also surprised me, I can't speak for everybody else, is that actually when you trust the teams and you trust staff to really and give them that independence, because we now have to, that it pays back, and there's been no, no clash in that case. I think what I find more and more important or missing is, because it's not only what we're gaining, it's what we're missing, is we've talked a lot about before about mental health, and all of these things. That is missing in all of this. You cannot communicate as well with your teams or colleagues to see how they are, whether you can't assess if people are stressed, lonely, or whatever it is, which you do get a better sense in the office if somebody's overwhelmed. And I think in the long term, that for me would be the challenge. Funnily enough, not so much about the workload. And then the next challenge would be, as we mentioned right at the beginning, is how will it work with getting new work? So we started that, we've done a few bids, and it works, it's different. So that'll be a learning curve. But yeah, where do we go from when we go into new things, new projects? Like if you meet people, like we've met each other, you develop a connection or whatever that is. So this will not be possible so much anymore. So what will be, I don't know how to say it, the new version of that, building connections? How will that happen? What will we rely on? So that's the unknown.
So far so good in terms of actual projects in the office, and
Yes,
they're still progressing.
they're still progressing. They're progressing well. You spend a lot of time working out, how we spent, I think all of us, the first 4 weeks probably working harder than we ever did before. Not that because of the workload per se, that was the same, but in finding ways to get together. So we've been very, very fortunate. I mean, obviously, the construction industry, there's been certain challenges over the last few weeks, and that's time to time has affected certain projects. But all in all, we can say it's been working well. Fingers crossed. Like I said, we have to be realistic. We've been in it for 7 weeks, so it's a short period.
Well, let's hope it continues on in a positive way.
Yep.
Yasmin, thank you very much for your thoughts, and I look forward to meeting up in person sometime in the future.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks for having me on.